The moment Kate wrapped her
We
arms
need to
around
stay
Charlotte,
calm and figure this
the
out
temperature in the
together.
room
Let's
shifted.
think this through.
Fear took shape. Anger simmered
We need
under
to stay
every
calm
breath.
and figure this
And
out
in the corner,
together.
Yes, let's
Thomas
think this
Parker
through.
Bowles looked less like a misunderstood relative and more like a man who suddenly feared the truth might not bend to him this time. Camilla...
A castle should have been silent. But just after 2 a.m., a scream ripped through the north wing sharp, terrified, and carrying a name no one expected Princess Charlotte to ever speak in fear. A royal guard bolted from his post, sprinting toward the sound that echoed like a warning only he could hear. And when he forced open the locked bedroom door, what he saw froze him mid-breath, Charlotte trembling, the room torn apart, and a man Camilla's own son standing exactly where he never should have been. What happened next would reshape trust inside the palace forever. If stories like this pull you in, don't forget to tap like and subscribe. Your support helps these deep dive royal stories reach more people. And hey, feel free to share this video with someone who follows the royal family as closely as you do. Now, let's break down what really happened that night. Just after 2:18 a.m., Windsor Castle held the kind of silence that only ancient buildings know, heavy, deep, almost sacred. Hallways slept. Curtains didn't move. Even the air felt still, as if the castle itself was resting. And yet, somewhere in the North family wing, a sound began to rise. It wasn't loud at first, more like a muffled echo. A child's voice tangled in a nightmare. Most guards would have dismissed it as ordinary sleep talk. But Sergeant Rowan Hawley was not most guards. Rowan had served 12 years on inner royal detail. Calm under pressure, sharp when everything else felt blurred, and the kind of guard who could pick a needle out of silence. That's why, when the first faint cry reached him, he stopped breathing for half a second, not out of fear, but focus. He turned his head slightly, listening. Another sound followed. Sharper, more desperate. "Stop, please stop, stop." Rowan straightened instantly, every muscle pulled tight. That wasn't a dream voice. That wasn't sleep talk. That was terror. He took 2 quick steps down the corridor, boots muted against the polished floor, ears locked on the direction. The north wing was narrower than the public halls, which meant echoes didn't drift. They pointed, and this one pointed directly toward Princess Charlotte's bedroom. He called softly into his comm. Interior post, possible distress, confirm movement in the north wing. Static, then a quiet, negative. Thermal reads clean. In other words, nobody else heard it. Before Rowan could radio again, the scream hit. This time it wasn't faint. This time it wasn't muffled. This time it carved straight through him. "Thomas, please stop." Rowan didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for backup. He took off at full sprint. Every detail sharpened as he ran. The portraits watching him from the walls. The cold bite of air. The sharp swing of his stride. Because a child screaming a grown man's name in terror at 2 a.m. meant one thing and one thing only. Someone was inside Princess Charlotte's room. Rowan reached her door in seconds. He grabbed the handle. Locked. A royal child's bedroom was never supposed to be locked from the inside. He knocked once, hard. "Princess Charlotte, ma'am, are you safe?" No answer. Then a thud, a soft cry, and a man's voice snarling, "Stop shouting." That was enough. Rowan stepped back, braced his shoulder, and slammed the door with full force. Once. Twice. The wood splintered, and the lock cracked. The third hit blew it open. The room was chaos. A lamp flickered on the rug. Pillows scattered like they'd been thrown. Blankets twisted into knots. The air felt punched apart, thick with panic. And in the left corner dashed Charlotte, 10 years old. Hair tangled, eyes swollen, breath shaking. Her nightdress pulled at the shoulder. Her wrist twisted above her head. pinned by a man she should have never been alone with. Thomas Parker Bowles, Camilla's adult son. He was half kneeling, face red, fingers locked around Charlotte's wrist, while his other hand braced against the bed frame, as if trying to trap her in place. Rowan didn't shout, didn't panic, didn't freeze. He simply said, voice low, steady, dangerous, "Step away from the princess." Thomas whipped around, startled by the red uniform filling the doorway. She was screaming. "I came to help." "You're twisting this." Charlotte tore free and scrambled toward Rowan. Don't let him near me." The child collided against Rowan's leg, clinging with both hands. Rowan shifted instantly, placing himself entirely between her and Thomas. His stance changed, not violent, but impenetrable. Thomas scoffed. "You guards love drama." She was dreaming. Rowan didn't blink. He tapped his collar, a coded signal, child protection breach, confirmed distress, adult male present, detainment probable. Thomas laughed sharply. "You're blowing this out of proportion." But his eyes darted to the open hallway. He was planning to leave, to run, to spin the story first. He took a step. Rowan blocked him before his foot touched the floor. "You will not leave this room." Thomas froze. "Excuse me?" Behind Rowan, Charlotte's breathing cracked into small, frantic hiccups, the kind that break a parent's heart long before they hear the story. Rowan didn't look back at her. His focus remained on Thomas. "Did she ask you to enter this room?" No answer. "Did she invite you inside?" Silence. Charlotte whispered, barely audible. "I told him to stop." That single sentence shifted the room. Thomas tried again, weaker this time. She panicked. I held her arms so she wouldn't flail. "Ask my mother," she explained everything. Rowan stepped forward 1 inch. Just enough to say the whole world had changed. Nothing else about him moved. It was Thomas who faltered first. His confidence thinned. His jaw tightened. He glanced toward the door again, calculating escape. And that's when heels hammered down the hallway like a storm. Camilla. She appeared in the doorway in a rush of silk and fury, robe sweeping behind her. Her eyes darted from the broken door to Thomas, then to Charlotte's shaking figure tucked behind Rowan. Her choice was instant. "Thomas," she gasped, rushing toward him. "Are you hurt? What did that child do this time?" Charlotte flinched so violently, her knees buckled. Camilla's words hit harder than the scream. Rowan raised a hand. "Ma'am, do not approach the minor." Camilla reared back as if slapped. "You do not command me in my own granddaughter's room." She screamed his name in terror. Rowan replied calmly. "This is a safeguarding breach." Thomas stepped closer to his mother. "They're exaggerating." Before he could finish, another voice echoed down the hall. A mother's voice, soft, breaking, moving fast. "Charlotte?" Kate appeared, barefoot, hair loose, robe thrown over her nightdress. She took one look at her daughter, and the world under her feet cracked open. She ran past everyone, dropping to her knees and gathering Charlotte into her arms. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here. Tell me, did he touch you?" Charlotte didn't speak. She didn't need to. She nodded once against her mother's chest. Kate looked up first at Rowan, eyes full of gratitude and terror, then at Thomas with a stare so cold it silenced the entire doorway. And the palace, for the first time that night, truly woke up, because what came next would not be blame. It would not be excuses. It would not be silence. It would be William, running. And when he arrived, the castle would shift from panic to judgment. The storm had only just begun.
However, had no such hesitation. "Thomas," she repeated, stepping toward her son as if he were the victim and not the only adult who had no right being in this room at all. Her voice softened instantly, desperate, protective. "Are you hurt?" Did she panic again? Charlotte curled tighter into Kate's robe, shaking. That one tiny movement, bare feet pulling inward, hands gripping the fabric, should have told Camilla everything she needed to know. But entitlement had its own gravity. She didn't see the child. She saw the accusation. Rowan Hale shifted, widening his stance, blocking Camilla's path before she got even a single step closer. "Ma'am," he said quietly, tone steady but immovable, "do not approach the princess." Camilla froze as if slapped. "I beg your pardon?" Rowan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. She screamed in terror. "She named your son. This is an active safeguarding breach." "Safeguarding," Camilla scoffed, throwing up her hands. "She is dramatic, sensitive. You know how she is, Rowan. Children dream, they cry, they confuse voices. She's always had an imagination." Thomas was comforting her. Kate's head snapped up. Charlotte whimpered and buried her face deeper into her mother's chest. But Kate only held her tighter. She didn't argue. Not yet. She simply looked at Camilla with a calm that was far more dangerous than shouting. Rowan turned slightly, angling his body, so the child remained fully shielded behind him. He wasn't taking chances. Not with a child who had screamed for help until her voice cracked. Thomas cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "This is all being blown out of proportion," he said, adjusting his shirt as if that might make him look less guilty. She was thrashing in her sleep. "I held her arms so she wouldn't hurt herself. The screaming, that's what I was trying to stop." Kate's voice came out soft, but it carried a sharpness that cut straight through the room. "She screamed your name." Thomas blinked, forced a laugh, but it trembled. "She has nightmares. She calls out all sorts of things." Kate's voice dipped colder. "She didn't cry for help. She cried for you to stop." That silence hit harder than shouting ever could. Camilla pointed a finger at Kate. "Are you accusing my son of—" Kate didn't even flinch. "Don't you dare turn this on her." Thomas stepped toward the doorway, toward escape, toward control. Rowan stepped with him. "Sir," Rowan said, body tightening like a drawn bowstring, "you will not move closer to the minor. You will stay where you are." Thomas's jaw twitched. He wasn't used to being told no. Not by guards. Not by anyone. "Do you really think you can threaten me? I'm the Queen's son." Rowan didn't blink. "That title does not grant access to a child's bedroom after midnight." Camilla bristled. "I will not have you speaking to him like he is some criminal." Kate finally rose from the floor, keeping Charlotte held against her. Her voice was calm, almost frighteningly calm. "Then tell me why my daughter's room was locked from the inside." Camilla opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Kate continued, voice steady. "Tell me why she was screaming his name. Tell me why her shoulder seam is torn. Tell me why my 10-year-old is shaking and can barely breathe." Thomas swallowed. Children overreact. Kate cut him off without even raising her tone. "She nodded when I asked if you touched her." That was the moment Thomas finally looked afraid. Not of Rowan, not of Kate, but of what would happen next. And the castle seemed to sense it too. Boots thundered down the corridor. A command voice barked orders to stand clear. A rush of senior security moved like a wave. William had arrived. He didn't enter the room with chaos. He entered with silence. His eyes went first to Charlotte, small, trembling, clinging so tightly to Kate she looked like she might fold into her mother's arms entirely. Then to Rowan, whose posture remained steady, protective, unwavering. Then to Thomas, flushed and rigid with guilt. Finally, William looked at Camilla. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. "Explain," William said quietly. Camilla exhaled in a harsh burst. "William, this is a misunderstanding." Thomas was trying to help. Charlotte screamed. She always screams. She is emotional, dramatic. Charlotte tightened her grip at that word. Dramatic, like her fear was theater, like her voice was performance. Rowan stepped forward just half a pace, enough to place himself closer to the child again. William turned to Rowan. "Report." Rowan straightened. His voice softened, not weak, but respectful. "Your Royal Highness, I heard Princess Charlotte screaming at 2:18 a.m. She named Mr. Parker Bowles directly. pleading with him to stop. Room was locked from the inside. Breach executed. I found the child in distress, restrained by Mr. Parker Bowles. She fled to me immediately upon entry. Child protection, level code confirmed. Kate squeezed Charlotte's shoulder gently. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "I'm right here. You can speak." Charlotte shook her head, hard, and her voice cracked out small, broken. "Don't let him come near me." Everything in William's face changed. Not loud, not explosive, just sharp, a father's rage, quiet as a blade sliding from its sheath. Thomas tried to step forward. Rowan blocked him instantly. "Sir," Rowan said, tone turned to stone. "Step back." Thomas snapped, "You cannot detain me. This is insanity." And then he made the mistake entitlement always causes. He lunged, not at Rowan, not even at Kate. Just one step, one careless, arrogant step toward Charlotte. That was enough. Rowan moved like muscle memory and duty fused into one. He shoved Thomas backward, pinning him cleanly against the wall, forearm across his collarbone. Not violent, controlled, precise. Thomas gasped, struggling against a strength he had never earned and could not break. "You are detained," Rowan said calmly. "Do not resist." Camilla shrieked, "You cannot detain my son. William, say something." William turned to her with a look so cold it silenced her instantly. "He was in my daughter's bedroom." Camilla opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing. Kate held Charlotte closer, whispering softly into her hair. Charlotte whispered back, trembling, "Why won't you believe me?" And that was the final fracture. William faced the nearest officer. "Escort the Queen Consort to the East Isolation Suite. Effective immediately. No access to family wings. No contact." Camilla staggered. "You're isolating me?" William didn't even look at her. Charlotte was all he could see. Kate all but carried Charlotte toward the medical wing, whispering reassurance with every step. Behind them, Rowan followed, silent, protective, unmistakably ready to guard her a second time if needed. Thomas was cuffed. Camilla was escorted away, and the palace that night learned something it had forgotten. When a child screams, power shifts, and no title outranks the truth. The hallway outside the medical wing looked nothing like a royal corridor anymore. The marble floors, the polished portraits, the soft morning lamps, none of it mattered. What mattered was a child trembling in Kate's arms, the guard who wouldn't leave her side, and the storm building quietly behind William's eyes. Charlotte clung to Kate with both arms. Small fingers dug into her mother's robe like anchors. Her breathing came in tiny, sharp bursts, more like someone trying to survive a memory than air. Every few steps, she peeked over Kate's shoulder, checking the shadows, checking the corners, terrified that someone might still come for her. Kate kept one hand over her daughter's head, gently guiding her into the light of the medical suite. "You're safe now," she whispered, over and over. "You're with me. No one's touching you. No one." Rowan Hale followed behind them, exactly 5 paces back, never too close, never too far. His boots hit the marble in slow, controlled steps, nothing hurried, nothing showy, just deliberate presence. The kind of presence a child could rely on, even without words. He didn't look at Kate. He didn't look at William. He kept his eyes forward, body angled just enough to guard the rear. A silent promise. No one will touch her again. Not while I'm here. They reached the medical threshold. A waiting physician bowed his head quietly, asking nothing, offering calm rather than questions. He opened the door. Kate took Charlotte inside slowly, letting her feel the safety of the room before stepping farther. Charlotte hesitated at the threshold. "Will he come back?" she whispered. William stepped forward, not as a prince, not as a future king, but as a father trying to hold his world together. He knelt, lowering himself to her eye level. "Not while I'm alive," he said softly. Charlotte nodded. Exhausted, she let Kate guide her inside. The door closed gently behind them. Now came the part no one envied, the reckoning. William turned to Rowan. The corridor was empty except for 2 of them. Dawn light filtered softly through the narrow windows, illuminating Rowan's immaculate uniform streaked with dust from the broken door. His posture was still perfect, boots aligned, spine straight, but there was something different in the air now, a weight shared between two men who understood exactly what had almost happened. "Sergeant Hale," William said quietly. "Sir, you didn't hesitate. It wasn't a question." "No, sir. You broke protocol." "Yes, sir." Still no apology. William stepped closer. "Why?" Rowan didn't look away. "Because your daughter screamed the one name she should never have to say in fear." William's jaw tightened. His voice dipped into something that was neither royal command nor anger, something deeper. "You acted alone. You acted without orders. And because of that, my daughter is safe." Rowan didn't move, but something in his eyes softened. Not relief. He didn't serve for praise, but understanding. William extended a hand. Not ceremonial, not regal. A father's gratitude. Rowan didn't accept it. He bowed his head instead. "Your daughter asked me to stay nearby. Until she feels safe again, I will remain." William lowered his hand. "Then stay." For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy but steady. The castle had been shaken, but its walls weren't the only things built to endure. Rowan was standing proof. Then came footsteps, fast, frantic, unsteady. Prince George appeared at the end of the hallway, escorted by two guards who tried to keep him back. He broke free, sprinting to William. "Dad, what happened? Is Charlotte hurt?" His voice cracked at the end. William caught him by the shoulders. "She's safe. She's with your mother." George's eyes darted down the hall. "Where is he?" William didn't answer immediately. He placed a firm hand on his son's back. "Handled." George swallowed, fists clenching. "I heard screaming. I heard the guards calling codes. I thought—" He stopped, unable to finish. William pulled him close, letting his son lean into the safety he needed. "You don't need to fear the hallways of your home," William murmured. "Not while I'm here. Not while your mother is here. And not while men like Sergeant Hale stand guard." George glanced at Rowan. Their eyes met. A single nod passed between them, not of rank, but shared understanding. The guard who had saved his sister was no longer just a uniform in George's eyes. He was a shield. Before anyone could speak again, a wave of movement stirred farther down the corridor. Senior security officers approached, serious, tight-lipped, purposeful. At their center, handcuffed and red-faced, was Thomas Parker Bowles. His confidence had vanished. His shoulders hunched forward. His eyes darted everywhere, searching desperately for someone who might still defend him, someone who might still call this a misunderstanding. But Camilla was gone. Kate was gone. Charlotte was gone. And William no longer looked like a man considering explanations. He looked like a father who had already made his judgment. Thomas stopped dead when he saw William and George standing together. His breath hitched. "William, this is insane," he spat, trying to straighten his posture. "You're ruining everything over a child's panic. I was helping her, for God's sake." William stepped forward. Two security officers moved to intercept, but Rowan shifted before they could. One fluid, unspoken motion of protection. Not aggressive. Just ready. Thomas's lip curled. "Oh, look," he sneered. "Your pet guard." Rowan didn't move. He didn't blink. He simply remained still, dangerous, and quiet. Thomas's bravado broke. William's voice was calm when he finally spoke. "You entered my daughter's bedroom without permission. That's not—" "You locked the door." Thomas flinched. "You restrained her." Thomas opened his mouth. William's tone cut clean through him. "And she begged you to stop." That was it. Thomas deflated like something collapsing from the inside out. William stepped so close the humiliated man had no choice but to meet his gaze. "You violated the one boundary no man crosses," William said quietly. "The safety of a child." Thomas swallowed hard. His eyes flicked desperately toward the hallway, searching for Camilla, searching for support, searching for an exit he would never find. Rowan's voice entered the air like a blade sliding into its sheath. "He will not be near the princess again." Thomas glared at him but didn't speak. William nodded once. "Take him." No special treatment. No delays. The officers moved immediately, escorting Thomas away. His protest faded down the corridor, swallowed by the thick stone walls. When he disappeared around the corner, the entire corridor seemed to exhale. William finally faced Rowan again. "Tomorrow," he said, "I will speak to the king. But understand this now. Your actions tonight will not be forgotten. Not by my wife. Not by my daughter. Not by me." Rowan bowed his head. "I only did my duty, sir." William's voice lowered. "No, you did more." The medical wing door cracked open slightly. A familiar, hesitant voice drifted out. "Daddy." Charlotte stood in the doorway wrapped in a blanket, Kate behind her with a gentle hand on her shoulder. Her eyes were still red, but she was standing, stronger, a little braver. William rushed to her, gathering her gently into his arms. Charlotte whispered, "Is the guard still here?" Rowan stepped forward but stayed respectful. "I'm here, ma'am." Charlotte's grip tightened around her blanket. "Don't go." Rowan bowed. "I won't." Kate's eyes met his, filled with the kind of gratitude that didn't need words. A family shook, a child survived, and a guard became something more than uniform. He became the line no one else dared to cross. The sky over Windsor Castle slowly shifted from deep charcoal to a hazy lavender as dawn crept toward the horizon. A night that felt endless began to loosen its grip. But the castle itself did not relax. Not yet. Not after what it had witnessed. Not after what had nearly happened. Inside the private medical wing, Charlotte lay curled against Kate, wrapped in a navy blanket that looked too heavy for her small frame. Her breathing had steadied, but every so often a tremor ran through her shoulders, like her body was still trying to outrun the memory. William sat at the edge of the bed, rubbing small circles on her back, grounding her with touch and presence. Kate whispered, "You're safe, darling. You're safe. Do you hear me? Nothing can reach you here." Charlotte nodded, but her eyes flicked toward the door, toward the hallway, toward the place where fear had lived just hours ago. And standing exactly where she was looking, silent, still, unmovable, was Sergeant Rowan Hale. He hadn't left his post. Not for water. Not for rest. Not even when other guards were sent to relieve him. Each time a replacement approached, Rowan simply shook his head once. They understood. He wasn't standing guard because of protocol. He was standing guard because a child had asked him not to leave, and Rowan Hale was not the kind of man who broke a promise. While Charlotte rested, the rest of the castle stirred into a slow, tense awakening. Senior staff whispered urgently in hallways. Advisors rushed in and out of secured rooms. Communications directors drafted and redrafted statements they might never release. King Charles, still unaware of the full scope, had been woken early, but William requested that the briefing be delayed until Charlotte was medically cleared. It wasn't a power move. It was a father's choice. For once, royal protocol bowed to parental instinct. At 6:12 a.m., a medical specialist entered the room quietly and approached Kate. "We need to run a few assessments," she said gently, "just to make sure she's physically okay." Kate looked at Charlotte. "Sweetheart, the doctor is just going to check you. Is that all right?" Charlotte hesitated. Her eyes drifted again, straight to Rowan. He stepped forward a single pace. "I'll be right here, ma'am. I won't leave." Only then did Charlotte nod. William's throat tightened. A child who had been terrified to be alone now found safety in the presence of a single guard. And that said more about Rowan than any medal or rank ever could. Camilla's world collapses quietly. Elsewhere in the castle, Camilla sat in the isolated East Suite, wrapped not in robes of authority, but in the consequences of her own denial. Her hands shook as she tried to write a statement defending her son, but every sentence sounded weaker than the last. For the first time in decades, she felt the isolation she once used as a weapon pressing against her own ribs. The palace staff avoided her. The corridors she once ruled refused to echo her footsteps. And the crown, her shield, had turned away from her. She whispered to herself, "He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't." But the memory of Charlotte's tiny, trembling voice cut through her defense like a blade. "Why won't you believe me?" Camilla closed her eyes. She had no answer. In the lower security wing, Thomas Parker Bowles sat in a holding room, wrists still cuffed. The bravado had drained from him completely. He stared at the metal table in front of him, trying and failing to justify his actions even to himself. He had grown up with doors open for him, excuses handed to him, responsibility softened by wealth and title. But none of that mattered now. Not after a guard broke down a locked door. Not after a princess named him in terror. Not after the future king of England witnessed his daughter sobbing in her mother's arms. The world had shifted overnight, and Thomas had lost his footing entirely. When Charlotte finally drifted into a light sleep, William stepped out into the hallway. Rowan straightened instantly, but this time William motioned for him to relax, just slightly. "Sergeant Hale," William said quietly, "the king will be briefed soon. There will be hearings, reports, statements. Protocol will attempt to make this complicated." Rowan nodded. "Yes, sir, but I want to be absolutely clear." William's voice deepened, steady and resolute. "You protected my daughter, and no committee will erase that." Rowan's face didn't change, but his voice carried a sincerity deeper than emotion. "I'd do it again, sir, without hesitation." William looked at the closed medical door. "I know." Silence settled between them, a silence that wasn't empty but full of understanding, full of respect, full of something unspoken but unmistakable: trust. Not the trust of a prince in a guard, the trust of a father in the man who saved his child. A few minutes later, Kate opened the door quietly and stepped into the hallway. Her face was pale, eyes tired, but her voice was steady. "Sergeant Hale?" Rowan bowed his head. "Ma'am." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "You didn't just protect her. You believed her." Rowan blinked, the smallest shift in his otherwise stone-steady composure. Kate continued, "Children remember the moments when adults failed them, and they remember the moments when adults showed up. You showed up." Rowan's voice softened. She screamed for help. Anyone would have gone in. Kate gave a small, sad smile. "No, Sergeant. Many would have waited for orders. You didn't." Rowan didn't respond. He didn't know how to receive praise like this. He wasn't built for attention, only duty. Kate placed a gentle hand over her heart. "For my family, thank you." Rowan bowed again, but this time it wasn't procedural. It was personal. A faint creak interrupted them. The medical door opened a few inches and a small face peeked through. Charlotte, blanket still wrapped around her shoulders. Hair brushed back, eyes swollen from crying, but finally free of fear. "Can I?" she whispered. "Can I say something to him?" Kate nodded gently and guided her forward. Charlotte walked up to Rowan, stopping 3 feet away. She didn't look scared anymore, just thoughtful, small, and brave. "You heard me," she whispered. Rowan lowered himself to one knee, not because she was a princess, but because she was a child who needed someone to meet her at her height. "Yes, ma'am," he said quietly. "I heard you." Charlotte swallowed. "And you came." Rowan nodded. "I will always come." A tiny, fragile smile tugged at her lips. It was the first real smile since the nightmare began. She reached out one small hand. Rowan didn't take it. Guards didn't initiate contact, but he let her place her fingers against his. A silent promise. A silent thank you. A bond not forged by royalty, but by humanity. Kate wiped a tear from her eye. William exhaled slowly. The castle, after hours of fear, finally felt like it could breathe again. The night ends. By the time the sun fully rose, Windsor Castle stood changed, not in structure, but in spirit. Camilla was isolated. Thomas was detained. Charlotte was safe. Kate and William stood united. And Rowan Hale remained a quiet hero who acted when it mattered most. There would be investigations, statements, internal reviews. There always were. But none of that could rewrite what happened in the dark. A child screamed. A guard heard. A truth unfolded. And a family survived. Because sometimes the strongest shields aren't crowns or titles or ancient walls. Sometimes the strongest shield is simply the man who refuses to wait for permission when a child needs him most.